Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
In August of 1984, a very strange and scary thing happened in Africa. It was in a quiet place in the country of Cameroon. There was a small lake there called Lake Monoun. It looked like a bone. Farmers lived around it, and there was a small road nearby. Lake Monoun was a peaceful place until this bad event. One night, villagers near the lake heard a loud rumbling sound. Nobody thought much about it at first, but at about 11:30 at night, a mysterious white cloud came out of the lake. It moved over the road close to the lake. The next morning, the sun rose. The strange cloud was still there. People from a village nearby started to go to work. They walked through the cloud. They thought it was just morning mist. But when they entered the cloud, they could not breathe. They died very quickly. Anyone who walked into that cloud died in about 1 minute. Later that morning, winds blew the deadly cloud away. Then everyone saw how many people had died. A police officer and a doctor came. They found 37 bodies on the road. Some people were walking, some were in cars, and one man was on his motorcycle. They all died because of the mysterious mist. At first, no one knew why this happened. Some local people thought it was evil spirits from the lake. The Cameroonian government believed it was an attack. They thought terrorists used chemical weapons. But this idea did not make sense. Why would terrorists attack a quiet road? And no one said they did it. So, people started to look for a natural reason. This was the start of a disaster that science could not explain at first. 2. A strange thing happened. The following morning, when the sun began to warm the land, the mysterious white cloud had not disappeared. It still lay thick and low across the road, close to the quiet lake. People from the nearby village woke up, ready to start their day. They needed to travel along this path to reach their work and other places. As they saw the cloud, they did not feel afraid. They simply believed it was an unusual morning mist, a common sight in some weather. Thinking nothing was wrong, they walked or drove their cars and motorcycles straight into the strange white vapor. But the moment they stepped or rode inside, a terrible and unexpected thing occurred. They found they could not breathe at all. Panic filled them as they gasped for air, struggling against an invisible force. Tragically, in only a single minute, anyone who entered that cloud that morning died instantly. Later that morning, around 10:30, the air shifted. Local winds began to blow, gently but surely. These winds slowly, mercifully, pushed the deadly cloud away from the road. Only then did the full horror of what had happened become terribly clear to everyone. A local police officer and a doctor quickly arrived at the scene. They found the lifeless bodies of 37 people. These victims lay scattered across the road. Some had been walking on foot, others were found dead inside their vehicles. At least one man was discovered slumped over his motorcycle. his journey ended abruptly. All had died believing the cloud was nothing more than a harmless, natural mist. In the immediate time after this incident, there was no good way to explain it. Some local villagers who held strong traditional beliefs thought the lake was cursed. They whispered that evil spirits had emerged from its depths to kill the people that morning. The government of Cameroon also had an initial theory. They suspected the event was a chemical weapons attack, possibly carried out by terrorists or rebels trying to take control. However, the idea of a chemical weapon attack did not make much sense to many. Chemical weapons are very difficult for small groups to get. Why would rebels waste such dangerous tools on a remote rural road where there was no important target? Also, no rebel group or individual ever claimed responsibility for the deaths. Because of these unanswered questions, the search for an explanation quickly turned. People began to look for a natural cause, something from the earth itself that could have created such a disaster. 3. Finding the reason. After the tragic event, answers were needed. The government asked Haraldur Sigurdsson, an expert volcanologist from Iceland, to investigate. Working in the United States, Sigurdsson arrived at Lake Monoun many months later to study the deaths of 37 people. Sigurdsson searched for volcanic activity. He found no evidence of a recent eruption, no sulfur, and the lake water was not hot. The lake bed showed no disturbance. It was hard to find a natural cause. Then he made a key discovery. He took a water sample from deep in the lake. When the bottle reached the surface, its lid popped off like a fizzy drink. Sigurdsson realized the deep water had much dissolved carbon dioxide gas, CO2. It was like a giant bottle of sparkling water. He understood the 37 victims died from breathing CO2. CO2 gas has no color or smell and is heavier than air. This explained why the deadly cloud stayed low, killing quickly. Sigurdsson formed a new theory, a limnic eruption. He thought magma under the lake slowly released CO2 over long periods. This gas dissolved into the cold, heavy bottom water. Warmer, lighter water on top trapped it like a cork. Unlike most lakes where water mixes, Lake Monoun is near the equator. Its constant warm climate prevents layers from mixing. So, CO2 built up for decades or centuries. Sigurdsson believed something disturbed the lake's layers, or the lower water became too saturated with CO2. When this cork broke, the trapped gas erupted. It formed a deadly cloud, killing everyone nearby. He called this a new natural hazard. In 1986, 2 years later, Sigurdsson wrote about his theory for the journal Science, but it was rejected. They said his idea was too strange. Many other scientists also disbelieved him. His theory was known only by a few experts. However, this was about to change. 4. A bigger disaster. 2 years after the first event, a much bigger disaster happened. In August of 1986, Lake Nyos, located about 100 kilometers northwest of Lake Monoun, erupted. Around 9 o'clock at night, people heard a loud rumbling sound. Suddenly, a huge cloud of carbon dioxide gas burst from the lake. This deadly, thick white mist also caused a 25-meter-high tsunami to crash onto one shore. The gas cloud shot up fast, then quickly fell back down because it was heavier than air. It poured into the villages and flowed into the lower valleys, killing everything in its path up to 25 kilometers away. In the two closest villages, Nyos and Kam, only 4 people survived. They were on higher ground. Many others died instantly. Some people were just knocked unconscious, staying that way for up to 36 hours. When they woke up, they faced a terrible horror. Their entire families and all their neighbors were dead. Survivors often had lasting health problems like breathing issues and skin damage. Over the next few days, people found a scene of total destruction. The cloud had killed a total of 1,746 people. This was almost 50 times more than the victims at Lake Monoun. The gas also killed all animals. Around 3,500 cattle died, adding to the overwhelming devastation. The scene was eerily quiet. Even insects had died. To make the scene even more shocking, the lake itself, which was usually a beautiful blue, had turned completely blood red. It looked like rusted iron. This huge disaster at Lake Nyos naturally attracted much more attention from around the world. Scientists and experts from many countries came to investigate. They quickly found that Lake Nyos was another special lake, like Monoun, that had collected gas from under the ground. This time, the world listened. Haraldur Sigurdsson's theory, which had been rejected as too strange only months before, was now fully believed. The terrible event at Lake Nyos proved that his warnings about limnic eruptions were real and a terrifying natural danger, not just a theory. The world finally understood the true scale of this hidden threat. 5. How to stop the lakes. The terrible events at Lake Monoun and Lake Nyos showed a new and deadly danger. But even after these disasters, the problem was not over. Scientists found that both lakes still held a lot of dissolved gas deep inside their waters. The water continued to fill with carbon dioxide, making new explosions possible. It was like a hidden time bomb, ticking slowly beneath the calm surface. People living nearby were still at risk. To stop this danger, scientists from around the world came together. They needed to find a safe way to remove the gas from the lakes. Many ideas were discussed. One idea was to drop a lot of lime into the water from helicopters to neutralize the gas. But this idea was too expensive. Another idea suggested using bombs to blow the gas out of the lakes. While this seemed fast, it was far too dangerous and could cause a bigger explosion. Finally, a simpler, safer plan was chosen. In 2001, work began at Lake Monoun. Workers placed a floating platform on the lake. From this platform, a long pipe went down deep into the water. This pipe reached the lowest part of the lake, where the gas was trapped. The gas-filled water then rose up the pipe to the surface. It came out like a big fountain or a geyser. As the water reached the surface, the carbon dioxide gas safely escaped into the air. This controlled process slowly removed the dangerous gas. More pipes were added to both lakes to speed up the work. It took many years, but the plan worked well. By 2009, Lake Monoun was finally safe. No more dangerous gas built up there. Lake Nyos was a much larger lake, so it took longer. But by 2019, Lake Nyos was also fully degassed. The dangerous lakes were now calm and safe. 6. A much bigger lake. After making Lake Monoun and Lake Nyos safe, scientists continued their important work. They knew that the special conditions needed for these dangerous lakes were very rare. Such lakes only form in places where the tropics meet areas with volcanic or tectonic activity. The lakes must also be deep enough to have distinct layers of water that do not mix easily. Because these conditions are so uncommon, scientists believed there were few other such lakes in the world. However, a third lake was soon discovered. This was Lake Kivu, located between the countries of Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Lake Kivu is part of the Great Lakes region of East Africa. Compared to Lake Monoun and Lake Nyos, Lake Kivu was much, much bigger. Lake Nyos was small, about 1.7 kilometers long and 1.5 kilometers wide, and only 213 meters deep. Lake Kivu, however, is a giant. It measures more than 88 kilometers long and 48 kilometers wide at its widest point. It is also more than twice as deep, reaching down to 475 meters below the surface. Lake Kivu is nearly 50 times larger than Lake Nyos. Like the other two lakes, Lake Kivu sits in a very active geological area. It is along the East African Rift Valley, where the African continent is slowly splitting apart. This deep movement beneath the Earth's surface causes volcanic activity. Hot springs beneath Lake Kivu release carbon dioxide gas into the lake's deeper, colder layers. This is similar to what happened at Lake Monoun and Lake Nyos, but on a much larger scale. Lake Kivu is also geologically older than the other two lakes. Its surrounding soil is very rich in organic material. This means there are many tiny living things in the lake's lower layers that consume this material. When they do, they produce methane gas. The same volcanic processes also add methane to the lake's bottom. This presence of methane makes Lake Kivu much more dangerous than the other lakes. Methane is different from carbon dioxide. It is less soluble, meaning it reaches its danger point faster in the water. Also, methane is extremely flammable. If Lake Kivu were to erupt like Lake Nyos, the cloud released could contain both toxic carbon dioxide and flammable methane. This could cause an enormous cloud of both suffocating and burning gases, bringing an even greater risk of explosion and fire. Lake Kivu has several distinct layers of water density. The lower, cooler, and heavier layers hold high amounts of dissolved carbon dioxide and methane. The upper, warmer, and lighter layers act like a giant stopper on a bottle. These layers rarely mix because the climate is always warm near the equator. For centuries, these layers have remained separate, allowing the gases to build up. This makes Lake Kivu a truly colossal ticking time bomb, holding a massive amount of dangerous gases beneath its beautiful surface. The risk of a massive explosion here is much higher. 7. A dangerous place. Lake Kivu holds a great danger. Around 2 million people live along its shores, including many in 2 large, busy cities. These cities, Bukavu and Goma, are on the lake's western side. They are home to hundreds of thousands of people. If Lake Kivu ever explodes like the smaller Lake Nyos did, the impact could be far worse. Scientists believe it could kill millions of people in less than 1 day. This would make it the deadliest natural disaster in all of human history. There are different things that could make the lake explode. One big risk is a strong earthquake. Lake Kivu is in a place called the East African Rift Valley. Here, the Earth's plates are moving apart, causing many earthquakes. Most are small, but stronger ones happen sometimes. For example, in 2008, an earthquake of 5.9 magnitude hit near Lake Kivu. In 2005, a 6.8 magnitude earthquake happened near Lake Tanganyika, another large lake in the region. And further back, in 1990, a very powerful 7.2 magnitude earthquake struck near Juba. If an earthquake strong enough happens around Lake Kivu, it could create large waves inside the lake. These waves could violently mix the distinct water layers. This would release the massive amounts of dissolved carbon dioxide and methane gas from the lake's deep bottom layers. The gas would then rush to the surface, causing a sudden and deadly eruption. Another danger comes from climate. A severe drought could cause Lake Kivu's water levels to drop significantly. If this happens, the stable layers of water and gas could become more exposed or less pressured. Then a sudden, very heavy rainstorm could disrupt these less stable layers. Such an event could trigger the gases to escape and erupt. Climate change makes the risk of more extreme weather, like droughts or heavy rains, greater in the future. This adds to the worries about the lake. Studying and monitoring Lake Kivu is also made very difficult by human conflict. The western side of the lake, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, is often a war zone. The government there does not fully control this area. Instead, non-state rebel groups, like the M23 faction, have power. These groups have attacked and taken over major cities like Goma and Bukavu, killing many people. Because of this fighting, scientists cannot safely go to the western parts of the lake. They cannot put sensors there or collect water samples to check the gas levels. This means they cannot fully understand how much dangerous gas is building up on that side. However, on the eastern side, the government of Rwanda has a strong system to monitor the lake's gas levels and seismic activity. They watch for signs of danger closely. Despite efforts to understand it, Lake Kivu remains a highly dangerous place. Its beauty hides a quiet, enormous threat to the lives of millions living nearby. 8. The future of the lake. The danger of Lake Kivu is still present. However, there is also a new idea to make the lake safer and help Rwanda. A company called Kivuwatt started working on the lake in 2015. This British-owned company takes methane gas from the bottom of Lake Kivu. The company's process is simple but important. They pump methane-rich water from deep in the lake. Then they separate the methane gas from the water. The methane goes through pipes to power plants on land. There it is burned for electricity. After methane is removed, safe water is pumped back into the lake's lower layers. This work helps Rwanda in two ways. First, it gives the country much-needed electricity. Rwanda is a developing country, and power is very important. Kivuwatt currently provides about 26 megawatts. This is about 9% of Rwanda's total electricity. The company plans to make more than 100 megawatts in the future. This would be about 1/3 of Rwanda's power. Second, this process slowly removes dangerous methane gas from the lake. This should reduce the chance of a limnic eruption. But removing gas is very slow. At its current speed, Kivuwatt will remove less than 5% of the lake's methane in the next 25 years. Some scientists are also worried about Kivuwatt's operations. They fear the company's work might accidentally cause the very explosion it is trying to prevent. They think pumping water and gas could disturb the thin layers in the lake. This might create a hole, allowing dangerous gases to rise quickly. There is an ongoing debate if the benefits of electricity are worth these potential risks. Despite these efforts, Lake Kivu remains a very dangerous place. It is beautiful on the surface, but it holds a huge, quiet threat to millions. The ongoing conflict in the area also makes it difficult to watch the lake on the western side, adding to the risk. Lake Kivu still has the power to cause the deadliest natural disaster in history. Do you think the potential rewards of generating electricity from Lake Kivu outweigh the risks of its extraction methods?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.